This video is not for whales and dolphins, it's for you because you are just like me. Average Duck Gamer here, and today I want to talk about the standard selector that we're all getting in Season 2. We're going to get a standard selector agent, and then we're also going to be able to pick from one of their wengens. In case you didn't know, that's pretty awesome. As we head towards it, what kind of agent and what kind of engine should you be thinking about? Now, what I'm going to start off with by saying here is that like all of the standard S ranks, I think are okay, but none of them are game winners for you. Let's put it that way. So I don't think that picking up one of them is going to be the difference between your account clearing and not clearing, except for maybe one, but we'll come on to that in just a moment. And secondly, it is to say that with that knowledge, I think that you can probably pick whichever one that you kind of want, especially if you're newer to the game. You can kind of just look at them and then just pick one that you think you might have fun with, and that's totally fine. And I might argue towards the end of this list that only one character is really meta, so to speak, but I don't think that really matters that much. If you have a use case for a particular character, then that means that you should pull that particular character. And it might be that one character can work in a few different meta endgame teams, but if you don't have any ice DPSs, what's the point in you pulling Lycaon? So really think about your account state, and that's why we're going to talk through each of these options so that you can understand what might be best for you and your account. And with that in mind, maybe you just want to pick Grace because of her giant personalities. But anyway, let's start with Grace. So Grace has been outclassed as an anomaly agent, but she'll never be completely useless. She's an electric anomaly agent, and because of that, Shock is still a very strong anomaly type, and therefore she can mix pretty well with disorder comps. Now, to be clear, she's not meta by any means, and she will likely require some pretty excellent builds and some skill to pull off using her in the endgame, but she can work. So if you have other anomaly agents that might benefit from having Grace as well, then you could consider picking up Grace. Or if you want to run the fabled Grace, Haru, Rina comp, then you could also try picking up Grace, but I will warn you that that's kind of tough.
I don't think this guy would survive Grace Haru, I'm going to be honest.
Anyway, let's talk about her engine. So her engine gives pen percent and can therefore be pretty good in niche circumstances, i.e. if you are building pen on a particular character. So this is mostly going to be used in teams where you're going to be using Rina, and we'll talk a lot more about Rina a little bit later on. But if you're going to use a more, say, premium anomaly agent, let's say Yanagi, you might actually benefit from putting Fusion Compiler, which is Grace's engine, onto Yanagi, and it'll let you run pen on Yanagi. You put pen on disc 5, you run her with Rina, and Fusion Compiler, i.e. Grace's engine, is actually pretty good. Miyabi can also use Fusion Compiler as well. You can argue that she might actually want more of an attack engine, not because she wants attack main stat, but she also wants like crit rate. But yeah, from a raw stat stick perspective, in niche circumstances, Fusion Compiler is actually pretty good and maybe something that you should think about if you are going to be running pen specific builds. Okay, let's talk about Nekomata. Nekomata is a DPS that exists in the game of Zenless Zone 0, and if you know that you want Nekomata, you can pull for Nekomata. But most people probably shouldn't pull for Nekomata because she's not great. She hasn't really kept up in terms of her viability as she heads into endgame. You can still make her work, but you really need to support her incredibly well. You know, we're talking about, you know, the Astra Nicole wheelchair in order to help her to clear that endgame content. If you're a Neko main, then you know that you're a Neko main, and that's fine. Good for you. And you can pull Mindscapes for Neko with your selector, and everyone will be fine with that. In terms of her engine can be used as a stat stick. It's an attack engine with crit rate, which is good. And you can maybe argue that it's kind of useful in niche circumstances. For example, with Hugo kind of teleports behind enemies with his EX special, and then he does a big hit. So a lot of his damage is going to come from behind, which means that actually he's going to be activating the second part of that additional ability for Neko's engine. So in theory, if you didn't have the Polychrome to pull for Hugo's engine, Neko's engine could do the trick, but you just have to be aware that you're going to be working around that limitation. And sometimes you might be better off just running Marcato Desire. But then again, if you miss the event, then yeah, sure, Neko's engine, go for it. Okay, then let's talk about the other DPS that we have, which is Soldier 11. She can work well, but you know, she does still need to be supported well. Now, if you want to get her again, I feel like you probably already know that you want to get her. I think if you're new to the game and you wanted to pick up a DPS from the standard banner, I think Soldier 11 would be a better pick than Nekomata. If you remember when the game first started though, people used to say that if your timing was excellent on Soldier 11, then you could output similar damage to that of an Ellen team. Now, as we've gone forward in the game, Ellen at Zone Zero, it has struggled to keep up with endgame content without being supported really, really well, and Soldier 11's in that same boat. Ellen is, of course, getting a buff as we head into Season 2, which is fantastic and great to hear, but Soldier 11 is not. She is a standard character. So just to be aware that, yeah, she'll have to be supported really well. You really are going to want to run her with lighter, and if you know that going into picking her up, then you'll know that now. Anyway, let's talk about her engine. Her engine is really good. It's the Brimstone, and if you're not sure what engine to get and you have at least one attack character without their signature, this is probably the one that you should pick up. I think there are a couple of exceptions to that rule. Hugo specifically, because you'll probably have him off field until the stun window, and therefore he might not be able to activate some of the additional effects of the Brimstone. But essentially the reason why it's pretty good is because it just offers a whole buttload of attack, and attack scales really, really well in Zenless Zone Zero. So if you don't have another S rank attack engine that maybe you pulled and you kind of flip around as a bit of a stat stick, this could be the attack engine stat stick that you need. It works well on G1, it works well on Evelyn, it works well on Sambi. Like, most attack DPSs can make really good use of Brimstone. And we'll move on to the second half of this list in just a moment after this reminder that you probably aren't subscribed. Like and subscribe is a great way to support creators like me on YouTube. You can also drop me a follow over on Twitch, where I yap about a lot of this stuff live. And you can also join the Discord, where you can hang out with a cool, chill bunch of peeps, and that's how we get people to come and join for account reviews and stuff. So check out the links in the description down below. Let's move on to the second half of the list. So then we have Koleda, and Koleda is kind of got a little bit of a niche at the moment, except she's never the first choice. So let's put it this way. Koleda is decent with Evelyn as a lighter replacement, because she does offer a buff to chain attacks from her additional ability. And in support of Koleda, she does stun really quick. She's maybe still the fastest stunner in the game in terms of getting to that stun. However, I think the problem is that she doesn't really offer anything else in terms of buffage other than a buff to those chain attacks, which again, Evelyn can make use of, but not many other agents are going to. In support of like carrying on and actually pulling Koleda though, is that Koleda is getting an upgrade where she's going to have rupture agents added to her additional ability, which means that she might be able to work a little bit with Yixuan, but it doesn't feel like chain attacks are a key part of Yixuan's kit, as much as her chain attack scaling may still be really good because, you know, she's Void Hunter level or whatever that means. So basically, Koleda doesn't really have a niche, but she fills a hole if you don't have a more premium version, and she's okay at that. Her engine though is a really good general stun engine, and is beneficial for teams when you want to just kind of EX and then dip out. I'd actually argue, and we'll talk about this quite a bit more in a moment, but I'd actually argue that in certain team comps, Koleda's engine is better on Lycaon than Lycaon's engine. And we'll get to that in a moment, but yeah, Koleda's engine is pretty good. It's a really good general stun engine. Lycaon's engine is also kind of good as a general stun engine, but I think Koleda's would edge it out if you're just looking for a stun engine for most stun agents, because most stun agents want to EX and dip. Okay, so Rina. Rina does two key things. She buffs Pen, and she extends the duration of shock. And she kind of has created her own niche, because no one else kind of fiddles with Pen in the way that she does. And the thing is about Pen is it works better the more of it you have. So you probably already know whether or not you want Rina or not. And if you do, then by all means, absolutely go for it. And if you do already have Rina and you're using her with, say, a Yanagi, and you've got your Dislot 5, maybe you're running Fusion Compiler for the additional Pen, super Pen build, the more of it you have, the better it is, then by all means, maybe consider getting her M1. It's a really good quality of life upgrade. It means you have to quick swap less. It takes her buff up time from around 6 seconds to 11.5 seconds. So it basically almost doubles it. So that is something to consider. And then in terms of Rina's engine, it is more Pen on Rina, so therefore makes it better and easier to get the max of her buff. And it does also provide a small damage bonus, so you can make the argument for it on other supports, but I think the A rank support engines are so good that honestly, you probably wouldn't pull it for anyone else other than Rina. Okay, then lastly, let's talk about Lycaon. And there's a reason why we saved Lycaon to the end, and this is not me telling you that you should pull Lycaon, but what I am going to say is that Lycaon is actually kind of meta, and he's the only one on this list who is actually kind of being used in best in slot endgame teams. He's on Hugo's best team, because Hugo's best best team is currently Lyta and Lycaon, and he's in one of Miyabi's best teams. It's debatable as to whether or not it is Miyabi's best team, but ultimately, it's Miyabi at the end of the day. But Miyabi, Lycaon, Sukaku is definitely a fantastic Miyabi team. Whether or not it's the best or not is kind of up to you. It also might depend on builds. There are moving parts there. But Miyabi, Lycaon, Sukaku is a great team. If my dumbass can get 45k with it, then it must be pretty darn good. Also, he's going to work really well with Ellen. And as Ellen gets a buff as we head into Season 2, yeah, if you already have Ellen, then it might be worth considering Lycaon. So essentially, if you have any of those agents, you should really consider Lycaon, because he's very good at adding that additional buff for ice for the stun window. Now, in complete contrast to Lycaon though, Lycaon's engine is okay. It's weirdly just an okay stun agent. From a stats perspective, yeah, it's going to be higher than some of the A rank options, but some of the A rank options actually scale better with the ability stuff than Lycaon's does. So depending on the number of stacks you're getting, you could actually argue that like an R5 Precious Fossilized Core might actually offer more days than Lycaon's engine specifically. In terms of Lycaon's damage output, the Restrained, his engine, is really good on him, but that's pretty much it. Honestly though, the stun engines are all pretty close in terms of like how fast they're going to be. I actually think in a lot of teams with Lycaon, you want him to come on and EX and then leave. That's particularly true of a Miyabi team and also probably an Ellen team. Maybe less true of a Hugo team, particularly if the Hugo's running Hormone Punk, which is probably what he should be running. Then you might give Lycaon a little bit more field time. But I guess what I'm saying is that actually for a lot of the teams that you're going to be running Lycaon, he's actually going to prefer to run Koleda's engine or Steam Oven than he would to run his own engine. So his damage, as I said, maybe a little bit better with his engine, but as mentioned, I would probably consider taking Hellfire Gears, even if I was going to put it on Lycaon, because I would probably run the Miyabi, Lycaon, Sukaku team. What I'll also mention before we wrap up on the Restrained though is that Trigger, her aftershock attacks do count as basic attacks, so she would actually prefer the Restrained if you were going to pull the Restrained for anyone, which is also a quick side note that Jufufu does off-field, stun build-up, which may also be classed as aftershock, which may also be classed as basic attacks. Anyway, I'm just putting it out there. There's a chance that Restrained might be Jufufu's like second or third best in slot, if that's the case, similar to how it is with Trigger now. And anyway, that brings us to the end of the list. I guess overall, hopefully this has given you enough information to make a little bit more of an informed decision as to who you want to pull. I think several of these agents can be good picks, and it all really just depends on the state of your account as to which one would be the right one to pick for you. I think the top two are Rina and Lycaon, and I think I kind of made that clear in the video. But overall, I also think you could have niche use cases for Koleda, maybe Grace, and maybe Soldier 11. And if you're just a Neko simp, then sure, go for it by all means. But anyway, that's enough out of me. Let me know who you're going to pull for in the comments down below. As always, remember to like and subscribe. Bet and average like on all your pulls. Pull responsibly. Stay weird. Bye.